Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Stacy Ajum. I'm a marketing manager here at Siegel Scientific. Today's session, Label Design with BarTender, will be presented in English only, regardless of the language you heard when joining us. And just to let you know, this session is being recorded, so everyone will receive a link to the presentation. And we will have a question and answer segment at the end of the webinar. So please feel free to submit your questions in the chat box throughout the webinar, and we'll get to them at the end. But for now, I'm going to pass it off to our lead presenter, Stephen Watkins.
Thank you, Stacy, and thank you all for attending Label Design with BarTender. My name is Stephen Watkins II, and I'm a sales engineer here at Siegel Scientific. You have myself on, you have another sales engineer, Roberto Posada, and Lee Stevens, our senior sales engineer, all here to help and to introduce Label Design with BarTender. Now, for today's presentation, we'll be following a pretty light agenda. Now, we're going to start with how do you create a label? Now, it sounds so simple, but this process of label creating can have many moving parts depending on how in-depth you need the label to be or how much information you need to be able the label to convey. We'll next go over BarTender editions that are available. Now, we have several solutions that fit companies just starting out in label making to advanced options that work with high-capacity automated warehouses and the like. Then we'll touch on labels you can create using BarTender. Spoiler alert, there are a whole lot of them. Next, we're going to dive into the demo where I'll take you step by step on how to create a basic address label. Now, resources are going to be next, and this is where we discuss what resources and support we provide to our customer base. And finally, we'll come to our Q&A portion. And this is where Lee, Roberto, and myself will be very interested in what questions you may have for us after the presentation and demo, and we'll answer them accordingly. And with that, let's begin. Now, BarTender is all about making labels, period. And we here at Siegel Scientific pride ourselves on being able to take data from a multitude of sources and convert that data into a concise and professional label. The way we achieve that goal is by using BarTender Designer. BarTender Designer is a powerful design tool for any marketing need. Now, BarTender 2022 is available via any of our software editions. Now, this starts with our entry-level starter edition for easy-to-use label design. Now, next is our professional edition for small business looking for a dynamic interaction, including data entry forms, intelligent templates, and database connectivity. And I should probably note that each higher edition of BarTender contains all the features of the lower editions. So if you start off with professional and you move into automation, you keep the professional functionality as well as the starter functionality. And speaking of automation, that's our integrating and automating label operation piece with existing or new systems like ERP, WMS, or MES systems. And finally, now for our centralized management of multiple locations along with document management and workflow approval, this is where Enterprise Edition comes in. The Enterprise Edition also includes the highest level of security as well as high availability for mission critical operations, especially in regulated industries. Now, the list of labels you can create with BarTender is extensive and ever growing. From pharmaceutical labels, food and beverage labels, to transportation labels and more, BarTender has you covered. So now I'll be taking you into a high-level overview of a label design. Now here I'm going to show you a starter's level look at designing a label for the first time, as well as providing some basic practice tips to start off with. And this is BarTender Designer. This is where we live when designing a new label. All data will be brought in from your source of truth, correlated, and then made into the label of your design, be it on an Excel document or connecting a database to the designer. Let's start with a new document. So this is our document wizard, and this is where we start from beginning to end, walking you through setting up your first template and the basis of what you'll be designing on. Now you have the option of using a blank template, or you can use templates from library. These are templates that you've created previously, worked on in other avenues, and maybe you just needed to tweak something or have it be able to be the same, but just slightly different than what you were using previously. But today we're just going to use a blank template for our purposes. Now, the printer selection. This is where you have all of your drivers that are available to you on your own PC and also others on the network that you are connected to. Now, today we're going to use the Zebra ZT610. It's a well-known printer and standard in label making. Stock selection. This is a favorite of mine. So today we're going to use customized settings of my own making because we have a certain way that we're going to design the label. But if you're somebody who, again, is either starting out or you just want your label to look maybe similar to someone else in the industry, you've seen the design, you liked it, and you wanted to tweak it yourself, there are a number of label or industry labels that are very well known that you can go towards and use. We have Avery Dennison, Avery Standard, Brother, Tyco, Toshiba, and of course, Zebra Technologies. But again, we're just going to specify our own custom settings. Now, items per page. Now, when we're designing, you're going to see that there's one label that we're looking at. But if you had multiple labels that you wanted to see how they were set up as you were creating, you have the option to use multiple columns and rows, items per page. You can set up the rows how you would want or the columns how you would want here. But again, for our purposes, single item per page is all we need. Now, side edges. This is a great feature. What it does is that it shows that the printer driver is telling BarTender, here's how far out you can go on the sides without there being an issue. And it's automatically at 0.05. These can be changed if need be. Now, you'll see here it says, no, it does not. I mean, other than yes, it does have some unused material on the sides, or no, it does not. There are some labels that when you're creating them, they don't need to have unused material on the sides because of the way that they're cut in the type of printer. So here, we do need the sides. We'll keep going. Printed item shape's pretty basic and simple. Rectangle, rounded rectangle, ellipse, and circle. Always just depends on which label that you want to make. Now, template size. Now, this is, again, defined by the driver that's there in the system. And mind you, I want to actually bring this up. Siegel Scientific has over 7,000 drivers that are Windows-based for printers. So you're actually going to have more of a harder time to find printers that we don't work with in a Windows-based environment than that we do. But back to here, user-defined size. I'm going to define what we're doing here, which is why that will stay, but it also can do 2x4, 4x4, and 4x6 due to the specifications of the ZT610 that we're doing, or that we're using. So we've got a width of 4 inches and a height by 4 inches. Now, the width is great, I'm okay with that, but I think I'd like to make the height a little bit shorter. I don't think it needs to be that tall. So if you'll pay attention here to the label, go to 3 inches, it changes automatically. It also changed on the orientation in the icon. And speaking about that orientation, so say that you had 4 inches wide by 3 inches high, but the person gave you the information, said, oh no, wait, I meant the other way around while you're trying to start. Simply click to landscape, keep an eye here. Landscape will switch how the label is going to come out and how it's going to look before it prints out. It's a great feature to have, but we're going to keep the portrait. We're going to keep on moving. Now, template background. You're going to hear me talk through this demo about something called static objects. These are objects that are never going to move. They're never going to be anything different. You're going to be able to use them, or they're going to stay the same as you're creating your labels and other variables in the label itself. And this is where this starts. So the background features, you can click and choose a color if you want, any color in our palette. All the standard colors are there. You can also go into gradients if need. You can also apply a picture to the background. Now this picture can be for the whole background. It could be, say, for half or a portion of. Now my favorite part of this is the design guide image. Now the design guide image allows you to take a template, as we were talking about earlier. Maybe you need to actually tweak one that you had from somewhere else, or you've seen a design. You can take an image of that, set it in the background of your label, and design over the image with the tweaks that you want to make, making it a lot easier for you to be exact and concise on what you're doing. But we will not need any of those. And then next. And we're done with the base setup. We've got a starting blank document. We're using a Zebra ZT610R printer, and the template size is going to be 4 by 3 inches. There we go. All right. So here's where we start. So as I was speaking before, I'm going to give you best practices on how to start and go forward in making labels. And the first tip I'm going to give you is start with placing your static pieces first. And the reason being is that you want to get those in, get them out of the way, and see what's there and design around it if need be. So I'm a company that's just starting out, and I've got my own logo I'm going to use to send my labels out. I'm going to insert it from a file with the embedded pictures here. You have a number of options: scanner for camera, clip art, specify, even down to encoded picture data. So again, we'll insert from a file, and we have a number of prefabbed icons here and ready to go. So this one, and we're good to start. First piece down. So I think we're going to add the sent from address. That's never going to change. It's my company. Unless we move locations, the address will always be the same. So for that, we're going to use a text box. And I'm going to show you a couple ways to do that. So first, text box here in the tab line. And we have a number of objects. You can just use normal. You can use normal wrapped, word processor, symbol font character. These are transform text objects. I like to call them the fun area because you can actually tweak and have a little fun with the angles. You can have an arch, you can have a smile, lettering. It brings a lot of flair to the label itself. And then if you want to go in the weeds, you have the markup language containers, which is RTF, HTML, and XAML. Again, we're going to keep it simple. We're just going to go with normal wrapped. And there we go. Good deal. We're going to need, that's going to be the name. Let's do the address line. And I don't want to keep going back and forth. And here's the second way to actually add the text box. Right click on the highlighted box here, copy it, and then paste it. All right, and that'll be for our city, state, and our zip code. So as you can already tell, these aren't aligned. So I'm going to go back to the thing I told you about earlier when I say rookie mistakes. Rookie mistakes. I'm going to stop you from having rookie mistakes because when I first started, I got in and I was starting and developing, and I was like, oh, okay, let's get it right here, and let's add this over, and let's just try and grab these and make it all just add up with the ruler up top, and that's not the most efficient way to do this. You can do that. Again, there's 101 ways to make a label, no one right way to do it, but let's work smarter here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all three of the text boxes. Now I'm going to draw your attention to the right panel here, and this is our alignment. This is how we would stay exact and uniform, and when designing labels, uniformity is key for a professional look, I promise you. So you can align to the left, the right, top or bottom, horizontal center, another favorite of mine, center region, vertical region. We're just going to align left. Done. So now while I've got all of them selected and they're acting in unison, I think I'd rather use a different font. The font we have here is fine, but it's not one of my favorites. I like Baskerville. So we're going to go ahead and add Baskerville. As soon as I tab, if you'll watch the text, already changed. Well, I think I want to do a smaller size. Let's go with 9. Great. Simple, changed. And instead of doing those one by one, it saves time there too. I will say you don't want to have your boxes all the way out. If you can help it, have them hanging off the sides. You can run into issues later on. So we'll want to just drag some of these in. We're going to keep the top one long just in case because the name of the company is a little bit longer. There we go, lock it in. All right, now we need to put in the information of where the product is coming from. Now we need to do that in the properties of each one of these text boxes. Now there's a couple ways to go about that. Now I can right click on this text box that's highlighted and click on properties. And that's one way to go. And you can go to each one and make that change. It'll work fine. But we want to work in our data sources as much as possible. The data sources menu here gives you a very good pathway of what's in the label, what's going on, what's done. You can change names to specify what you're doing where, because again, we're going with a high level label as of today. But when you get deep into a label, when you have a lot of, say, multiple data sources, sometimes not knowing the name trips you up. So we can just double click on the text box though, and that brings up the properties. Now, if you'll notice, we have the sample text highlighted here. It's also with the green box, so it lets you know exactly where you are. All right, we're going to go with Sherlock Medical Devices and the embedded text. And obviously you see it changing here. Now, I could, again, right-click on this sample text and then change it here. Or, since we're already in the properties, because we're going back anyway, the faster way, just click here, and it shows where it aligns next. So, address for the company itself, there we go. And finally, city, state, and zip code. All right, good deal. Clean, succinct, and professional. You know what? I like it. All right, our two static pieces are taken care of now for this label. Now, next best practice tip, you want to connect your data sources, your source of truth, to the label that you'll be working on. I liken it to IKEA furniture. When you first get in, you're about to put it together. You want to check everything that you've got ready to go in front of you before you start to create. It's the same here. You want to have your information ready to go before you start to create. So we're using the database connection setup here. And again, this is another wizard that's going to take you step by step through connecting the database and allowing you to keep going forward. Now, we have a number of different options for database connections. We have text file, XML file, BarTender Data Builder, Microsoft Excel, Excel Online. I mean, we've got SQL, JSON, MySQL, Google Sheets, Azure, and SAP HANA, just to name a number of them. But we're just going to go with an Excel document today. We'll select the file. Now, another very important best practices tip is when you're saving data sources or key pieces of information that you need for your labeling or somebody else might need to grab and use as a data source for your labeling, put it in your C drive root. Do your best not to put it down into, say, a personal set of folders. The reason being, you can run into an issue where somebody's trying, or yourself, are trying to find out why your data source isn't connecting or working properly, and come to find out it's due to the fact that there's a permissions level issue further down the line because of where it's placed. So again, just leave it on the root C, and it'll save you a lot of headaches on that. We're going to go ahead and add that. Data detection. Select a table. This is a one sheet table, so not too much to specify there. And I'm finished. So now we get the secondary menu. Now, if I needed to change this out, or if I needed to get a new data source, I would just go right back into the wizard. It would roll right over again. There's a number of options we have for what we can see in the database itself. We can go with a SQL statement if need be. Name, address, address to, city, state. The tables, one sheet table. Now the fields. These are what are already available in the Excel document. Now, a fun part that I like here is sort order. So as you can see, it already came in alphabetically, but if you wanted this to be sorted differently, you have control over doing that as well. And for certain things that you're going to be creating, depending on what industry you're in, that's a very powerful thing. You can start the name, you can have the zip code, then the city, address to, address, the name if you wanted to. It's all good to go. You can filter out what you need and filter it in. And a copy of the record browser as well. All right. Okay. Now, if you look on the left-hand side, again, I mentioned earlier, data sources where you're going to be tracking everything that you're doing on the label. So when I finished the wizard under database fields, all of my fields came up and populated under database fields. And that's going to be very key for the next part of what we're doing. There's a more efficient way of adding text to a box, and I think I mentioned that earlier, other than 3 separate boxes. So what we're going to do is we're going to add one more text box. We're going to do normal wrapped. We're going to bring her down. Now, if you look on this left, you saw that text box 4 is now here. And that's what we're adding in. Double check or double click. All right, so we got the sample text here. Now, instead of using the sample text, the embedded text, instead of typing it in, I'm just going to drag and drop the table. Now, this is a very, very great way to make labels. You don't have any opportunity for not putting in what you need to when. You just drop the database table right in, and it gives you exactly what you need. So we have the name, John Watson. Let's give him the address. Now, I want to bring your attention here. So we've added the name, and then, of course, keeping with the address standard, we press enter, got the carriage return. Then we added the address here, but it's adding it here under the data sources as I'm creating it here in the middle of the label itself. So we've got address. Let's add address 2. Nope, wait, almost messed up. We got to make sure to add carriage return. Nope. There it is. Address there. There we go. Now we'll add address 2. All right. There's nothing in address 2, so the field is there, but it's not populating. So we'll need to add another carriage return underneath. Now, we're going to need to add another data source to do so. We have a couple options to do that. Now, for data sources, you can add a new data source by just going to new data source, since it's already highlighted here. Or you can right-click on data source and click new. We'll do it that way. Embedded data, just going to click finish. Oh, all right, that looks a little off here. Reason being is because where you see it, again, so what you see is what you get. You're going to hear a little bit of that from me too. So what you see is what you get. So you get sample text right above the name. So we're going to move that with the arrow. And you'll see it walk through data itself, and now it's underneath address 2. So instead of address or sample text being there, it's going to hit enter, give it another carriage return. Now we're back on track. Let's get the city in, comma, and it even recorded the comma. Add the state. And then add the zip code. All right, we're looking good so far. Looking good so far. The next thing we want to add, since this is a label going out and being shipped, so we want to add some barcode symbology. And we'll be using the USPS Intelligent Mail, but I cannot stress enough, we have global industry standard levels of barcodes and symbology at your use at any time. We have, obviously, we have Intelligent Mail, Data Matrix, GS1, Data Bar Truncated, Data Bar, Code 39, one of the oldest and truest. Data Matrix, also more. We can go into general purpose. Aztec Code, Code 128. Data Logic 2 of 5. Distribution. I mean, the list goes on and on. But today, we're just going to use USPS Intelligent Mail. All right, it's a little off there. See again, the first half, you want to try and drag it, there's no need for it. Go to the right-hand side, center horizontally by region. There you go. Perfectly centered. Now, for the code, it's going to need data to ship it out and to know where to go. So for this barcode, it needs the delivery point zip code of, the zip code of where it's going. So instead of typing in the 60601, which I could do here, and that would populate, but that would only work for one label. If we want this to work for all of the labels, we're going to add the database field itself. We're going to assign zip code from the database field. Now I want you to keep careful eye on the barcode itself. If you'll notice, it changed. And the reason it changed is because the zip code populated the data in the background, and the non-human readable made the adjustment. That's now going to do that for every label that we're about to print in this batch. All right, looking good here. John Watson, let's center. Okay. We're gonna keep this a little bit longer. Sometimes longer names will pull through and you don't want the wrap to pull it down. So sometimes you go a little bit longer. We'll move it over just a minute, a smidgen there. Okay. All right, looks good. Let's take a look. We're gonna go to print preview. Another big tip that I want to give you for best practice, always print preview before you print a job. There are a number of things to go. You could have been working on another part of the label and maybe set the printer for 10 copies. Maybe you didn't realize that you're going to the wrong printer and you set 100 copies on the most expensive printing resource printer that you have in-house. This way, if you check it, you can double check everything that you're doing before you print and ensure that you don't waste any resources. So we're going to print preview here. We got John Watson. It just shows one. Now you have the option here. We can go and bring down 2 by 3 so you can see more of what you've got. So I'm automatically seeing James Moriarty looks great. Molly Hooper looks great. But Mycroft Holmes, John Watson, Greg Lestrade, we got a space here. Okay. Let's take a look. Where do we run into something here? So we're going to want to go to our text. I see it. So here's what happened. As I mentioned earlier, address 2, if there's nothing in the address 2 field, it just doesn't show, but the field's still there because you need it for your template. But what we're seeing here is a blank space. Now, rookie mistake that I made when I first started is that I thought that you had to adjust address 2 to make the space go away, but I was wrong. It's actually the carriage return is what you're seeing. And to fix this, we're going to go into something called transforms. Now, the transform tab is very powerful. You can use suppression here. You can use character filters, truncation, number of characters, search and replace, VB script, serialization, character template, and even prefix and suffix, which is great. But today, again, we're just going to use suppression. Now we have a number of options here. Now, first is going to be suppress when other than do not suppress. The first will be suppress when previous data source is empty. And that would be if the 65 East Wacker Place was empty. That's not what we're looking for. Suppress when next data source is empty. Oh, address 2 is empty. It's probably what we're going to end up doing. But you also have another option here where you can suppress when specified data source meets condition. And again, at this level, this is control that you love to have. So again, like these two, previous or next data source, or address 2, city, name, or state. If any of that is blank, you can use it as empty, and then you suppress. Or if it's not empty, equals, does not equal, is less than or equals, or is greater than. So it gives you a little bit of scripting control without having to be somebody who used script kiddies and things of that nature. So we're just going to suppress the next data source. There we go. That worked out pretty well. Let's take a look. We're going to go and we're going to do a print preview again, which you always want to do before you print anything. That's much better. That's much better. Everybody's coming up the way it should be. James Moriarty, his suite is coming. Mycroft Holmes, just his address is good. Martha Hudson, let's go to the rest. Okay. Molly Hooper, Philip Anderson, Sarah Sawyer. All right, everybody's good and it looks great. That is a great base starter label in and of itself. Now, we got a little time. I'd like to talk about moving more to the professional side here and the professional edition. The reason I bring that up is if we've got these labels, every time you shoot a label out or you want to shoot a label out, the way it's set up right now, all 10 of them print, every one. So from Greg Lestrade, Molly Hooper, everybody in my list is all going to get a printout at this point. Now, what if I just want to send out one, or maybe I want to send out two to a couple people. Maybe I want to give Greg Lestrade 4, give Mike Holmes 5, and send those at that point. What you can't do that unless you go to the next level here, and we're going to use a form. Now, the form itself gives you a lot of granular control over what you're doing with your labels. So whereas you would just connected the data source previously, you got it set up, all the data source spaces are ready to go, and you can just click print and send all 10. Here, we're going to go into a little more control. And what I'd like to do is I want to be able to see what's going to happen on the label before I print it. I want to see my records that I'm going to assign and get printed out. And you know what? I want to be able to, I want to start on the printer and have it ready to go, but not all the printers. I want more control over that as well. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a preview of the template. So I'll bring that up. Now, fair warning. Now, what again, that what you see is what you get piece that I talked about earlier is alive and well here. So as you're going to make the form this big when you design it, you're going to have that form this big when you look at it. Anytime it comes up, it's going to look just the way you design it. It's a good size for the preview template. Get a record picker going. Good deal. Let's get that ready. All right. Got all our records good to go. And the printers themselves. Let's go on ahead and we can just drag and drop. It's so easy to create the form. Let's use a radio button list. Good deal. And there's all of my printers. But I don't need all of those printers. There's going to be other people that are going to be using this form, and I don't want them to have access to all of the printers themselves. So what we're going to do is we're going to right-click on the properties. Right. And now we've got the properties for the record or the printer itself. I'm going to go to list items. So the source is the printers. But that's not what we want it to be. We want to customize this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to embed the data. We're going to do it ourselves. And so I took the liberty of copying out part of the list. Just going to copy it. I'm going to paste it here. Display text and item value match. We're going to put in our Zebra ZT610R. And we have one more printer on the network that we might possibly use, or I want my people to be able to use. Great, we're good to go. All right, so now we've got a preview of the label itself. We have the records that we'll want to have sent out to the customers, and we have the printers that we want to be able to print off of, be it one of the Zebras or a PDF. Looks like I didn't need all the space that I had, which is great. It's easily adjustable. Let's bring this up. Bring this up. And shrink the hole. All right. Now we've got a form that's ready to go and start, so we can actually send out specific labels versus a batch of labels. You know what? Let's take a quick look. Print preview, always print preview. I'm going to keep saying it. All right, so okay, well, that's not going to work. So what we have here is that in the record picker, even though we can choose our printers and we see what's here, we are basically in the same situation we were previously. We're going to print all of the records that are here, and that's not what we want to do. So we need to change the properties of the record picker. All right, so under the record picker, you have options of multiple columns. You can change the size, width, and the height here. Search control, always show by default, hide by default, always hide. You don't need any of those. You can group by. You can group by the name, you can group by the address, city, state, zip code. Again, not what we're going to be using. Now, toggle mode is fun. We have single or extended, but we're going to keep it with toggle. But what we need to worry about, work with, is the column. Currently, there's no column. There's no way for us to decide the number that we want to have here. So we can do a checkbox, and that gives us the option of just checking one and then going forward, and that's not what we need. We need the option to have multiple labels printed for different people. So we've got quantity. There we go. Quantity for each one of the folks that we need to send out to. All right, that should work out. We're going to print preview again. Oh, there we go. PDF, zebra, or zebra, and we're good. We're still not quite there. We're still not quite there. So this portion has one of everybody. So I can do more for Mycroft Holmes, more for Mary, more for Philip. But the issue is everybody's still getting one label printed. And again, that's going to be very wasteful and not what we're looking for. So one more time, we go back into the properties. So where would we look? Data entry. And there we go. So in the data entry option, so it's going to default you're selecting all of the records when it first happens. And so selecting all the records when it comes to the quantity gives you one in each record, and we don't want that. So we're going to go to no record, or for some folks, they would do selected print time, so you could select there. But here we're going to start with no records at all. I'm going to close that out. All right. I think we got it this time. I'm going to go into a print preview. All right. Here we go. We got quantity 0. We've got the print preview here of what we're looking to do. And we got the data entry form, or the printers, but the problem is, why are they grayed out? Why are they grayed out? Rookie mistake. When I first started doing this, I didn't understand. I thought I'd done something wrong for like 10 minutes. What had happened was that there's no quantity for the printer to print, and it sees that. So it's not going to print nothing. As soon as we check John Watson, printers became available. Martha, Sally Donovan, Philip, let's do 4 to Molly Hooper. We'll go PDF. Well, let's preview it. There we go. Now we've got 1 of 8 instead of the 10. But the reason that there's 8 is because we wanted several for Molly Hooper, 1 for John Watson, and Sally Donovan, Philip Anderson. They're all set and ready. And that's the power of being able to use a data form with the professional service, the professional piece versus the starter edition itself. Having more granular control and more ability to send what you want when you want versus just one batch and send and go is highly, highly powerful. And that's actually going to be the end of our demo portion. And I'm going to go back to our slides. And now it's time for resources. Now, portal.seagullscientific.com gives you announcements, email sign up, downloads, upgrades, and/or upgrades to the license if you need to. And it keeps you up to date with what's going on with Seagull Scientific. Now, support.seagullscientific.com gives you tutorial videos, technical guides, and community forums. I cannot stress the community forums enough. The reason being is because if you have a question that you're looking to find out, if there's something that you wanted to tweak or try, those community forums are very powerful. Other folks who are in the industry that also use our product may have the answer that you're looking for as well. It's a very, very robust community. Now, with our support and services, our benefits of live support, free updates to new versions and releases, upgrades and more powerful additions, and you can add printers. Now, options of 2 business hour response time and premium automation and enterprise of 1 calendar hour response time once you're up in those editions. Another great opportunity that we have for you is professional services. Not every customer has the ability or has people in-house to design labels, to connect up to their ERP systems, or to show them how to do that. A lot of companies are more of a smaller shop, and they just don't have that overhead with specialists there on hand. The professional services team can actually go in. You want to set up a time with them. They can take a look at what you're trying to do. They can customize templates for you. They can help with integrations. There's a number of different opportunities that they can help with. And it's always a great thought to maybe bring them on board if you need some help. And then consulting, projects by the hour for help designing, building, or deploying advanced label systems and more is also part of their bailiwick. And now we've come to the Q&A portion of our presentation. I want to thank you very much for letting me walk this path with you. And Lee and Roberto, do we have any questions that folks have brought up for us?
Amazing job, Stephen. Great job. Amazing presentation. We do have multiple questions. You want to start off, Lee, or you want me to start with the first question? So one question that we got today, Stephen, was what type of serialization is offered with Starter Edition?
With Starter Edition.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Roberto, off the top of my head, I don't recall that one. Do you have that one?
So if we go back to template, we're going to go back to the template, everybody. Go back to the template. One of the biggest differences, if you want to use serialization, if you drop down a text option, Stephen.
Sure.
Yeah, just drop down and do a normal. Now we're going to drop that, and then we're going to go inside the property. So as we've seen Stephen demonstrate here, everything you put in BarTender will have properties. That could be an image, that could be a text box, that could be a barcode. Takes us to the properties, and it's a good place to manage and edit anything we want on that specific object. So here we are on the sample text, and we're going to go to the transforms. We're going to modify the data source for that one, and then we're going to go into the serialization now. Serialization helps us increment or decrement numbers. So you think about it as a counter. So it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on the records. Now it's increment and decrement. That is available, and Starter, it's only going to let you go in numbers of 1 up and down, and it's only numeric, so it can only be numbers. Now that is Starter. If you need this to be, let's see, click on the method, Stephen, for us.
Sure.
Yeah, so if you need a custom sequence, if you need alphanumeric, if you need hexadecimal, if you need this to go in increments of 3, 4, 5, you know, there's all kinds of sequence. Did you need professional for that? Oh, there's Lee. He's back with us. But yeah, that is what professional is going to be able to offer you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sorry for the test interruption there. Yes, I am back. Yes, and Stephen, that was awesome. And by the way, folks, a lot of questions on this. What Stephen showed is done with the BarTender Professional Edition. So tune in tomorrow and we'll work on automation with some of the integrations. So one of the questions was on data entry form. What if you had a date and you wanted to automatically enter like a slash? How would you do this?
If you want to enter slash to the date?
Yeah. And Roberto, do you want to walk Stephen through doing that on the data entry form?
I think, why don't you take that one, Lee? I'm a little bit confused on that question, yeah.
Okay, so there's actually a couple of different ways that you can do the dates. Now, one is on the label itself, and I'll show that one really quick. So Stephen, go open we can actually use that sample text box you've got there.
Sure.
Okay, so now let's go to the properties of it and change the data type. There on the central tab, yeah, change that to date.
Okay.
Okay, now notice A couple of things here. First of all, locale. Date formats are different all around the world. BarTender is a global software. Click on the down arrow for locale, Stephen. Nope, not the slider bar.
There we go. There we go.
Here are all of the different date formats that BarTender makes available to you. So if you were living in, say, Switzerland, scroll down, and you'll be able to find this French version of Switzerland and so on. We're going to stick with English United States for right now. So click elsewhere. Yeah, just close that. Now scroll down on the format. These are all standard formats that you can select. And BarTender at this point is pulling, would be pulling the data automatically from the system clock. If you want something very specific, such as just the month, you can either find one that shows that or scroll all the way down, Stephen. Click on custom and now move into the pattern. You are actually able to create your own pattern using the data type function here. So for data entry, you can go ahead and click on close here and now go to your data entry form. For data entry, you do the same thing. Okay, so Stephen would create a form and then you would simply on the data entry properties tell it that it's date and set the form that you would want to use. So now there would be a few other things we'd need to set up to show that, but that's that same function that you just saw us go through on the label form on the template is what you would do here. Okay. Stephen, on my data entry form, all of my record numbers are selected by default and I have to untick all of them. How can I suppress that? I think you showed that to us once, but do you want to walk us through that again?
I did. What ended up happening is that it is similar to what already happened to me here. So what you have when something like that happens is it's the default under data entry. So we go into properties, record picker, data entry. And what's happening to you at first is that it was all records was showing. And when you have all records, we go to the print preview. You got the one, but you can add more, but you still have one of everything. And to ensure that that does not happen, that's where when we go back to the print properties, record picker itself, data entry, and you want to have no records selected when it comes to the quantity box. So that means that nothing will show or nothing will start going forward. And again, if you're doing a radial, doing anything when it comes to printers as well, you have to make sure that something is picked for the printer so they will know that they're going to be printing something or it'll stay grayed out or will not give the option.
So you've selected none. Go ahead and do a print preview so they can see that none would be this time.
Oh, slipped. One moment. There we go.
So there you go. Great.
And then under the gray, there you go.
Okay. Now we do have two questions. One is, are we able to integrate with SAP? And the other one is with NetSuite. We are able to integrate with any business system, that being SAP, that being NetSuite, that being Microsoft 365, that being a WMS, that being an MES system, that being a LIM system. If you want to learn more about automating with BarTender, Steve Lee will take care of that webinar tomorrow. We'll be doing automating with BarTender, and we'll cover all of those questions that are pertinent to integrating with SAP, NetSuite, and any other ERP, WMS, or LIM system out there.
So another question came up is, okay, I've created my BarTender label, but I need people who don't have BarTender to be able to access and print it. How do I go about doing that? Roberto, do you want to give them some advice on that?
Well, okay. Wednesday, I am going to be doing the mobile printing with BarTender. So I'll show you the companion apps and I'll show you how to get to those labels without having to have BarTender installed. Now, typically the person that designs the template, as Stephen has shown us through Designer, if you want to escape that mode, that person that is printing should never have access to the design portion, right? If you go to the template, Stephen.
Yep.
You know, somebody could print from there, right? The idea that somebody could print from there, but if you give them option to the template design, they can modify a template. And having variations of a template is never a good idea. So that is why we have, what do we have, Stephen? We have companion apps. And if you click on the start and show them the companion apps, you could either use Print Station or Print Portal. And those companion apps, by clicking on start, Stephen, and then on your start, I don't think, you're sharing, there you go. Click on BarTender 2022. And then you would see either Print Station, Print Portal. I would open Print Portal. And this is a click and print app. And what these apps are designed to, I would do Print Station and the other one, and then the other one, Stephen. So those are the apps that are going to allow you to just click and print. You're not going to the design aspect, and gives your operators a place where they live. So all they're going to do is they know, oh, I got to click on Print Station or go to Print Portal, and I'll be able to access my templates and click and print from there, making sure that everyone is using the same template across the organization.
So I have another question here for you, Stephen, on the design element. They said the question is that they have customers who send them images in either AI, Adobe Illustrator, or PDF form, and they would just like to be able to pull those into BarTender. Can they do that?
Well, there's a couple ways they can do it. When we talked about starting a new document, you can actually bring that in under the data image, under the, I can show it here, one moment. Design guide image. So yes, they can pull that in as a background if need be, and go on ahead and add that to the, they can add that to the BarTender label itself, and you can design over that and make whatever tweaks that you need as well.
That's right. But I'm going to add something else, because there's never just one way of doing something in BarTender.
No, there is not.
So go ahead and click finish here, Stephen.
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to bring up a new one. Now go to your picture drop down. Mm-hmm. Okay, and if you select input from file, there at the very top.
File. There we go.
Right. Okay. Now, if you click on file type down at the bottom on the down arrow, these are all of the different image formats that BarTender can pull in. So if you scroll, you'll notice if you scroll down, you'll see that there's AI for Adobe Illustrator. And we can also pull in PDFs as images this way. It's hard to have an image file that BarTender does not pull in. So yes, if your customers are sending you their artwork, you can pull them into BarTender and become part of a BarTender template. So Roberto, kind of as a follow-up, is somebody wanted to know that, let's see, where was that question? Or do you have a question, Roberto? They keep coming in, and keep the questions coming in, folks.
Thank you very much for all those questions. If we don't get to all of them, we'll get via email now. One thing I do want to mention, BarTender is a Windows house. I did see a question on Mac. You are able to run a virtual environment on Mac, and there is where you're going to be able to run BarTender. Now, if you do need to click and print from Mac, please join us on our webinar on Wednesday. We will go over mobile printing, and that should tackle the Mac necessity of printing, right, to a BarTender.
Hey, Stephen, I've got one here that's really a good one. They want to know about symbols for medical devices. Do you want to show them the Siegel symbol library font, or font library?
Yes, we can. One moment. We have a plethora, a plethora of symbologies. We have healthcare systems, electrical certification. We've got hazard. I mean, we even have a crab, folks. We have a crab if need be. Warning signs again, and this isn't just ours. These are internationally known and recognized. So yes,
Yeah. Why don't
We
you go
do have
to
some volume.
the medic? Why don't you go to the medical devices, since that's what they asked about?
Sure.
So, and these are updated with pretty much every revision of BarTender that goes out, and they are part of the fonts. So you can get a particular symbol just by having a character and highlighting a font. And that font's also available not just through this insert method, but also inside of insert symbols in a text object properties, as well as from the drop down. Where Stephen typed in Baskerville, he could have typed in Siegel and it would have pulled up all of those medical fonts as well. Roberto, one question I've been seeing coming in is they are on older versions of BarTender and they want to know about, you know, how do they update, and you know, what's their prognosis? I mean, we do have that news on BarTender 2016, right?
Well, everyone, you know, thank you very much for that question, Lee. I'm seeing those a lot. You know, I saw somebody saying in 2016 we don't have print station. And that's because you're using an older version of BarTender. 2016 is end of life next month. So this is a good reason to be on maintenance and support. This allows you to go up to a newer version of BarTender. So if you do not have maintenance and support, give us a call, pick up the phone, chat at us. Somebody in sales will help you get to the most recent BarTender edition. So all getting maintenance and support. This is going to open the door to Print Station, Print Portal. Something that I'm going to highlight on Wednesday as well is that if you want to use the mobile app, you have to be on BarTender 2022. So that's another reason to update. But all you really have to do, it doesn't matter what edition you're on, give us a call, email us, contact us. We'll help you get to the latest and greatest and get you everything that you're going to see today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. Okay?
Also, never forget to check our technical support portal, folks. And if you go in, if you have an older version of BarTender, by all means, you want to talk with our salespeople, but also check in there, type in update, and you will find guidelines for the actual updating of BarTender that you can go down through. And we have many customers who successfully update completely on their own, as well as customers who come to us and we give them some help.
Everybody, the other thing too, thank you, Lee, for that information. We are getting a lot of questions. I want to thank everybody for those questions. We are going to try to get as much as possible. We are 3 minutes short up top of the hour. We are ending the webinar at 9, so we'll try to get as much as possible done today or answered in the last 2 minutes. But most of those questions we will get to you via email. Do not worry. We will get to you. Okay.
Yeah. And for some of the more
another one, Stephen. A customer is asking about QR codes. Can you show them all of the barcodes we have available? So
Absolutely.
with BarTender, we work closely with GS1. You think about any barcode, it's there. You just have to ask for it. Like you click on general purpose or you do a search. You could see now, you could see by application, by healthcare, pharmaceutical, retail. Stephen used one that was shipping. In this case, somebody's asking for the QR code. So if you want to search for a QR code for us, Stephen.
Sure.
And it's more of typing it and looking for it. So we would see at the bottom as search results, you would see 7, Stephen. On the left side, all the way to the bottom.
Thank you.
And then we would see QR code. We would see the GS1 QR code, and that could be as well a digital link. So if we click on the QR code, Stephen, it takes us to the QR code. And there we go into select that and drop that into the template. And that is how easy it is to search within our barcodes and add a QR code. Somebody was asking if we are able to add a date to the barcode. Most definitely. If we go into the properties, right, Stephen, and going into the data sources, that is the most important thing, right? What is feeding this barcode? Well, it's a data source. In this case, if you want to change it to the date type, Stephen, for us, the date type would be in the middle, Stephen. Yep. in the middle of the 3 panels: data source, data type, and transforms.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And then we would do a date. And then, yes, you are able to pick between the format, and that is what's going to get encoded into that specific QR code. That could be a website. If you type in our website instead of a date there, Stephen, and seagullscientific.com, that makes it a live QR code where, somebody scans. If you realize this is what a lot of restaurants are doing now after COVID, a lot of restaurants would generate a QR code and would put in their menu, and that's where all of us are now just scanning instead of getting a physical menu. We would scan that QR code and it will take us to that website that is hosting the menu, and we are able to then say, hey, this is what I want for dinner or for lunch or for breakfast. Lee, you have we're at top of the hour.
We're at the top of the hour, and we could almost go another hour on just the questions. So thank you, folks. We will be getting back to you with all of these questions in emails. And by all means, contact us through sales. And if you want to learn more, if you want to do your updates, if you want, we have a 30-day trial that you can download for free that is full BarTender all the way up to Enterprise Edition. So if you have not tried BarTender, that is a great way of doing it. And I think at that point, Stacy, we are ready to go out.
We sure are. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and thank you for the great questions. Again, we will get back to you via email, and please keep an eye out for the recording as well as the slides used in this presentation. And if you haven't registered already for our 2 sessions remaining, please join us tomorrow with Lee for automation with BarTender, and on Wednesday with Roberto for mobile printing with BarTender. Again, thank you all so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.